the City Planning Board meeting to order. Can we have the roll call, please?
Stephanie Sutton is absent. Bob Ackerman.
Here.
Christian Newman.
Here.
Thomas Hawkins.
Here. James
Blythe is absent. Sophia Corrigetto.
Here.
And Jason Hurst is absent. So far.
Can we get can we have a discussion or a motion to adopt the agenda?
The agenda.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, the agenda.
That's right, you're right.
Right.
I'll second Bob's motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next on the agenda, we have approval of the minutes from June 24th. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, can we get a motion to adopt the minutes from the last board meeting?
So moved. Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay. All righty. Can we have you read the announcement into the record, please?
Yes. Section 30-3.3 of the Land Development Code establishes the Plan Board, including its membership, rules of procedure, and functions, powers, and duties. The Plan Board is advisory to the City Commission on most planning petitions. Appeals of the Plan Board decisions concerning special use permits are to a hearing officer within 30 calendar days of the decision. See Section 30-3.58C of the Land Development Code. The procedure for an appeal is set forth in Section 30-3.58.
Thank you. And from my understanding, we do not have anyone sort of online for this meeting, correct?
Correct. No members of the public online tonight.
Okay. So seeing that there's no one in the audience who may be here to speak about some other items, I'll assume that there's nothing from the public that others want to talk about. So we do not have any old business, which is a miracle. And yeah, so can we move on to new business? Yeah, can you?
I will read the first item.
Thank you.
Petition PB 2163 SVA, EDA Consultants Inc., agent on behalf of Low Issy and trustee, State of Florida IIF owners, request to vacate 134-foot section of right-of-way located in the 900 block of Southwest 8th Lane. And we have Nathaniel Chan on the call to give the staff presentation.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, City Planning Board. Can you hear and see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Well, again, good evening, City Planning Board. My name is Nathaniel Chan. I'm a planner for the City of Gainesville Department of Sustainable Development. This is petition PB-21-63 SVA, a right-of-way vacation of a portion of Southwest 8th Lane. This petition is privately initiated by EDA. The subject area for proposed right-of-way vacation is located in the 900 block of Southwest 8th Lane. The surrounding zoning is U9 or Urban 9 in conservation, and the future land use is UMUH, Urban Mixed Use High in conservation. All of the property owners abutting the proposed area for right-of-way vacation have signed the application requesting the right-of-way vacation, and the applicant owns the two abutting properties zoned U9. So here's where the right-of-way is to be vacated, and these are the two properties that the applicant owns that are zoned U9. And the University of Florida owns the conservation area at the end of Southwest 8th Lane. The area for proposed right-of-way vacation is approximately 0.15 acres, or it's about 134 feet in length of the 50-foot wide right-of-way. As part of their application, EDA submitted a conceptual/preliminary site plan upon the city's request. The applicant is proposing multifamily development at the end of Southwest 8th Lane with bike and scooter parking on the sides and vehicular parking below the building. there is a single ingress and egress to the parking area. Based on the existing land use of UMUH and abutting conservation area, future development will need to provide a compatibility buffer, specifically a type B buffer, as per section 30-8.5 of the Land Development Code. This site plan is purely conceptual, and a full development plan will be reviewed at development plan review. Staff reviewed the subject petition based on the review criteria for right-of-way vacation outlined in section 30-3.41 of the Land Development Code and the policy 10.2.1 of the transportation mobility element of the comprehensive plan. With that being said, staff recommends approval of petition PB-21-63 SVA. Regarding criteria 1D, which is whether the proposed action would deny access to private property, the proposed right-of-way vacation would not deny any access to private property. The abutting property owner signed the application to request the right-of-way vacation, and other properties will continue to be served by the remaining portion of Southwest 8th Lane. Regarding criteria 1F, the effect of the proposed action upon the safety of pedestrians and vehicular traffic. Southwest 8th Lane does not have any existing bike lanes or sidewalks, and fire, police, and other emergency vehicles will still have access to the remaining portion of Southwest 8th Lane to service those other abutting properties. Regarding criteria 2C, the proposed right-of-way vacation will create multifamily residential units in close proximity to non-residential uses, including Gainesville's Innovation District, Depot Park, and it's also a few blocks away from the University of Florida's main campus. More details on the petition meeting the review criteria can be found in the staff report. With that, thank you. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chan. Do we have any questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, I assume we have an applicant presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I am Onelia Lazari with EDA Consultants, Inc. We are the applicant for this petition. I have a PowerPoint that I'd like to go through briefly with you. I'm going to share my screen. Mr. Vice Chair, would you please assure me that you can see my PowerPoint presentation?
I can assure you we can see the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll try to do this briefly because Mr. Chan did a wonderful job of quickly summarizing through. As he indicated, this property and this property are the low properties, and this is University of Florida conservation, land use, and zoning. And in the campus master plan, it's designated as urban park. Southwest 8th Lane dead ends basically about at this point, and there's vegetation here. I'll show you a photo of that in a minute. Prior to this application, several years back, the right-of-way that would have connected to this road here, which is here and here, was vacated. And so there's no possibility of interconnectivity from this road. And again, to show you, this is highly vegetated at the end here. It's basically a paper street at about this point. And the University of Florida property contains drainage facilities. There's a fairly large ditch here and featured stormwater feature. And there are low areas here, which is why it has the conservation designation. So there is no possibility that this would be a road that would continue through. The portion that is UF property, as I said, has conservation zoning and land use, and full access to the other parcels on Southwest 8th Lane will remain for municipal services, emergency services, all of those things. And this is just the legal sketch that we provided. And as I stated, this was the area that was closed back in 1991, and this area was also closed in 1991. So there's no possibility of any future connectivity. And this illustrates that vegetated area that I was talking about before. The property that is on this side of Southwest 8th Lane is a duplex that was built in the 1950s, 1955 exactly. And on this side, you can't see it, but there is a single family dwelling here that was built in 1966. So this is an area that could be ripe for redevelopment. It has the U9 zoning designation and the urban mixed-use high land use designation, and again, the U9 zoning designation. So the city has intended this to be an area for redevelopment and much higher density. The justification for this request, there are no plans for Southwest 8th Lane to ever be extended. We talked about the ordinance that was adopted in 1990 that vacated portion of Southwest 8th Road that would have connected to this. And so that has precluded that further connectivity. And the added land area will promote redevelopment of the two low parcels into a higher density transit supported development. We are consistent with the comprehensive plan. Future land use element goal 2 talks about redeveloping areas as needed in a manner that promotes quality of life, transportation choice, a healthy economy, and discourages sprawl. Certainly this is an area, again, that the city has recognized for redevelopment with that urban mixed-use high land use designation. And this right-of-way vacation will make redevelopment of these parcels far more economically feasible. And then also future land use objective 2.1, redevelopment should be encouraged to promote compact, vibrant urbanism and improve the conditions of blighted areas, discourage urban sprawl, and foster compact development patterns. And that is exactly what this right-of-way vacation would promote, is a redevelopment at much higher densities that would encourage that compact development at transit-oriented densities. Mr. Chan did a nice job of running through the review criteria that are in the land development code for vacating a right-of-way. So I will not go through these slides unless there are particular questions about it. And I'm just going to skip through these very quickly. And you can see there are a lot of criteria, and we have responded to all of them. So finally, our request is that the Plan Board approve petition PB-21-63 SVA to vacate portions of Southwest 8th Lane and Southwest 8th Road in the 900 block so that redevelopment can occur. And I would, like Mr. Chan, be happy to answer any questions that the Plan Board might have.
Great. Thank you so much. Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think everybody, I'm not sure if Member Corrigado's heard me talk about this issue, but I know both you and Mr. Ackerman have. One of our criteria in the code, and I'll read it because I think the language is super clear. The city shall not vacate a right-of-way except if the following additional criteria are met. And then it lists 4 criteria. And then one is the loss of the street is necessary. And then the word necessary, it is the word necessary, for the construction of a high-density mixed-use project. And then it goes on to explain what would constitute a high-density mixed-use project. And in our presentation, we heard the words that this would allow redevelopment, it would promote redevelopment, it would create flexibility for redevelopment, it would increase feasibility. But we didn't hear any suggestion either by Mr. Chan or Ms. Lazari that vacating the street is necessary. So what would make vacating the street necessary? If either of the adjacent parcels weren't buildable in their current form, then maybe we would have something to look at to understand if this was necessary. The 2 properties, 155688 and 155694, are comparable size to the other properties in the neighborhood. So I guess my question is, do we have any evidence that we can look at that would convince us that this is necessary for the construction of a mixed-use project, mixed-use high-density project?
I can try to address that, Mr. Chair, if that's okay
Yes,
with
please.
Land Board.
Please.
I think that being a long-term urban planner, that when we use the terms feasible, that is a necessary component of redevelopment. That to make this economically feasible, that additional land is very important because there's no stormwater at those two sites currently. And the way that the lots are positioned without building something with adequate parking at the site that would provide for residents is very, very difficult. Currently, people are parking on the end of that right of way on dirt, basically at this point. So in order to allow the redevelopment of the property, I would say that it is absolutely necessary because it is not economically feasible to develop try to redevelop the properties without that additional right of way being included to make the properties join and to create a higher density development.
So I want to address a couple things about your answer. One, how big are these? So you're saying it's not possible to redevelop them because you cannot accommodate necessary stormwater and parking. Can you talk about how big they are, what your stormwater calculations are, how much parking you would need, and then help us understand why it's just not possible? Because I hear the conclusion, but I don't hear an analysis.
I am sorry that this is one time I have the acreage of the right-of-way that we're vacating, but I do not have the acreage of the individual parcels, but they are relatively small in size. And again, the idea is that this would allow a building, a multi-story building, to be built across that right-of-way and join those two parcels.
Okay, so then the other question is, you talked a lot about economic feasibility. Can you walk us through that? Sort of are these under contract? Is there a purchase price? Is there a rate of return you can talk about? How have you concluded it's economically infeasible to develop these under the current scenario?
Mr. Chair, just for both of the parcels, the one to the east is a 1/4 acre, the one to the left is 0.28 acres.
In your experience, is it impossible to develop land that's about a 1/4 acre in size?
No, I would say I think Ms. Lazari, I think, is making the point that while the existing pattern of the lots and the sizes wouldn't preclude any development, I think what I'm hearing is that it would potentially preclude high density development. At a 1/4 acre lot, I mean, I think this reflects the original development pattern in this block, which is mostly single family homes. You would probably get a slightly more dense product on there, but I think there are some space considerations, so you still have to park those units, and you still have to be able to provide stormwater, which would likely be in this area subterranean stormwater under a parking area. So it wouldn't preclude development, I would say, but it may not provide the ability to have high density development, which is part of what the standard calls for.
I would like to indicate that Mr. Persons has summarized it very, very well. That yes, these parcels could redevelop, but they would not redevelop with much higher density than is currently there, given the configuration of the lots with the road in between them. And in answer to your question, no, this property is not under contract at this point.
So how are you able to conclude it's not financially feasible?
Well, we are an engineering firm that looks at these types of issues. I did not bring those numbers with us. But again, as Mr. Persons indicated, these parcels could redevelop on each individual site with triplexes or maybe two-story development, but they would not be developed at a higher density that's at the level of the U9 that the city has placed on this property.
Can you tell us a little bit about what density is achievable with the current lots and what you've got in the drawing that Mr. Chan showed us, so that we can have a standard of comparison between what's currently allowed and what it is that you want to do instead, or your client wants to do instead?
Well, again, given the limitations of stormwater and parking, I would think that something like a triplex on each of those properties might be achievable. And I say that with might because we would have to meet stormwater in some way, and that would take up room. And in fact, I think I'm going to retract that and say probably a duplex on each site, even if we went vertical. In terms of the redevelopment, the UMUH, as I recall, is allowing in the U9 up to 100 units per acre. If Mr. Persons can give me that, the two, I think I heard quarter acre, is that correct, Mr. Persons? And what was the other one?
0.28 acres. Yeah, I think.
My question wasn't what density the zoning allows. My question was, I presume that Angdeman and Associates drew the drawing that Mr. Chan showed us?
No, we did not. The architect drew that, and that was Ricardo Cavallino.
Have you reviewed it, or are you able to talk about it at all?
I am not, in terms of, it was a conceptual drawing to show how the lots could be utilized with the additional right-of-way. It is conceptual only. This is one of those situations where we have not a large corporation owning and attempting to redevelop, but a relatively simple property owner who cannot expend for engineering services and all those other things until there's an assurance that the redevelopment could occur. So we've got a chicken and egg problem here.
Well,
but
could I ask a question, Mr. Chan?
Yeah.
Mr. Chan, can you tell us, do you know how many units there are, what the density would be, and then what the mixed use component is, if you're able to tell from Mr. Cavallino's drawings?
I can pull up the drawing. The drawing wasn't specific as far as the units that were shown on there, but let me pull that up for you just so we can look at it together. All right, and go back. Okay. So here's the drawing, and I mean, here it shows 3 units, but of course this is going to be a multi-story building, so it's not really clear, and it doesn't actually say anything on the drawing how many units will be provided.
3 is less than the 4 Ms. Lazari said you could build on the existing lots.
if I can point out that the parking that's shown below the building, I believe, if I'm counting correctly, it has 35 spaces. So, and again, as Mr. Chan pointed out, that the units that are in the front are to shield the facade from that first floor parking. And then if you'll note on the drawing, it says parking below building. And so there would be units built up above that. And given the 35 parking spaces, and if somebody else can count quickly, I was doing it on the fly. My recollection is that we're requiring about 1 parking space per unit. So I would think that would give us some good notion of how many units. Nate, did I count?
You counted correct.
Okay, well, good. That's, at least I've got that going. So I think that again, I cannot attest that it's 35 units, but I think that it's a very good indicator that there are 35 parking spaces there with units on the ground floor fronting that, and then there would be units up above the parking as it indicates, because it says parking below building.
And does it indicate what the non-residential component is?
There is no non-residential component. I believe that that policy specifically says that it is in close proximity in creating close proximity of residential and non-residential uses. So this would be residential in close proximity to the University of Florida, the Innovation District, and the 6th Street area along University Avenue.
So as you read that policy, we could get a street vacation anywhere within 5 or 6 blocks of the university, and it would be in close proximity to the university sufficient for that policy?
Absolutely. That's less than a quarter mile. And it does say close proximity of residential and non-residential uses. So again, close to the Innovation Square District and all the non-residential uses there. I would absolutely say that that is a walkable distance, and we determine walkability or proximity by walkability.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigato? Number 1.
I think that's
Thanks,
me.
Andrew.
Oh, that was Andrew? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm not who I am. My number doesn't have a number.
All right, Mr. Ackerman.
Yeah, I have just one, obviously, Thomas and I disagree with this all the time. This ordinance, which I consider to be somewhat defective, because interpreting it the way Mr. Hawkins does, there virtually is no right-of-ways of any kind that can ever be vacated. This board also spends a lot of time talking about affordable housing. And we can make you build dense housing on tiny little lots and you'll triple the cost. And if that's what we're trying to do, we can make this as expensive as possible, but it's not the same as we give up on affordable housing. So obviously, efficiencies in size from being able to put 35 units, and I don't know how many units they propose, as opposed to, two 5-story towers with 6 units in each. So I'm in favor of this. I'm not persuaded by the idea that under no circumstances should we ever have a right-of-way vacation. I'm also persuaded that being within proximity, we clearly are meeting the city's goals of increasing density in an area that we very much want to increase density. That's a perfect location for students to walk to and from school. It's also a perfect location even for faculty to live there and walk. It also is clearly accessible to non-residential uses in the vicinity.
Thank you. Are there any other question or discussions from the board? Okay.
I'll make a motion.
All right.
I'll give the reason for the motion before I give it. I think that unlike when we make recommendations to the commission on a legislative matter, when we're deciding whether to vacate a street, when we're deciding whether to issue a special use permit, if somebody comes to us and meets the standards, we issue the permit whether we like the project or not. When somebody comes to us and doesn't meet the standards, we deny the permit whether we like the suggestion or not. And frankly, I appreciate Ms. Lazzari's quick thinking on her feet, but I don't see anything that persuades me that this is necessary for building a high-density mixed-use project. And I agree with Bob's other points, but those aren't the standards that the city adopted.
Well,
the city commission sets the standards, and it's our job to determine whether something meets them. So my motion is to deny petition PB-21, or to recommend that the city commission, they'll make the ultimate decision, deny petition PB-21-00063 SVA.
Do we have a second? Okay. We don't have a second. Is there someone else who's willing to make a motion?
If I can find my eyes. Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve petition PB 21-00063 SVA based on the staff report referred today, as well as presentation from the petitioner.
Okay, do we have a second? Again, I cannot make a motion or make seconds, correct? Okay. Okay. Do you second? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so it passes 3-1. Thank you, Ms. Lazario.
Thank you, Ms. Lazario, Mr. Chen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Plan Board members, and I do want to compliment Mr. Chen on working so well with us on this application and his cooperation and help. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Lazari. Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. Okay. Next item. Can we have the next item read into the record, please?
Yes, next item, PB 2197, TCH, City of Gainesville applicant, amend the Land Development Code relating to floodplain management in order to comply with a Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA mandated update. And we have Badez Massey on the line, as well as Andy Renshaw from Public Works to give the presentation or the information on this one.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the City Plan Board. This is Badez Massey of the city's Planning Division Office within the Department of Sustainable Development. And I am going to co-present petition PB 21-0097 TCH. And at this time, I'd like to share my screen with you.
Thank you.
I hope everyone can see the first slide.
Ms. Massey, we cannot see the first slide.
Can you see anything now?
Nope, we still can't see it. We can see your name. So we know you're there.
Are you able to see it now?
Nope.
Badez, do you want me to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I know what I have to do.
You got it, okay.
Okay.
This would be me.
Well, we're seeing something. We see you.
Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
We are not able to see your screen yet.
And Badez, I do have the presentation as well, just in case.
Okay, I don't understand what the problem is, but
Well, we could, again, we could,
Should I go ahead and pull it up? I'll go ahead and pull it up.
yeah. You can go
thanks,
ahead.
Brittany.
No problem.
And hopefully you can see it, and then you can just say next, next,
Exactly.
next.
How about if I do this?
Nope,
You cannot see the screen?
nope.
I don't know what the problem is here.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and share mine. Oh, we see it.
Okay, do you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Great.
Short presentation.
Okay, so you see the first slide?
Yes, we do.
All right. Okay, this petition involves the city of Gainesville, Florida as the applicant and the impacted area. The application type is a text amendment to the city's land development code, and it is legislative in nature because ultimately it's the city commission that has to issue approval. The subject matter is floodplain management because the proposal is to modify text within the land development code pertaining to floodplain management in order to comply with a FEMA mandate to make this language consistent with recent upgrades to the Florida Building Code. My co-sponsor tonight is Andrew Renshaw, who's a civil engineer with the City Public Works Department. So once my presentation is completed, Andy Renshaw is going to give more details about what this text amendment entails. This isn't the first time that the city staff has presented to the City Plan Board and City Commission modifications to the floodplain management language within the Land Development Code. I think the most recent update may have occurred back in 2018, but the staff recommendation tonight is to have the City Plan Board recommend to the City Commission that petition PB 210097 TCH be approved in advance of a September 24th, 2021 adoption deadline based on a finding of compliance with all applicable regulations. So at this point, I'd like to thank the City Plan Board for your time. I apologize for the slight delay. And at this time, I'd like to let Mr. Renshaw continue on with his presentation.
Great, thank you, Ms. Massey.
You're welcome.
Does Mr. Renshaw, do you have a PowerPoint, or are you just speaking to us?
No, I do have a presentation. Again, greetings, Plan Board. Thank you for having me on this evening. And one quick correction: I am not a civil engineer. A certified floodplain manager is what my credentials are. So, just one little correction on that. But let me share my screen.
We can see your screen. I don't know if it's in presentation mode yet, but.
Yeah, I'm working on that. There we
Okay.
go.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, so basically, as Fidesz had mentioned, this is a text change, and the two major changes that we're dealing with this year are: one is a revised elevation requirement for manufactured homes, and then a text change having to do with accessory and agricultural structures. And that is, I'll get to both of those in more specifics here in a minute, and then some minor wording changes and updates. So manufactured homes, the first thing is that, to give you a little background, FEMA issued some prerequisites to have at least a foot of freeboard. And what freeboard is the additional space between the flood elevation and where we would have a finished floor. And that provides a little extra protection from floodwaters, and it's actually a statewide mandate. So currently, across the state, we have actually been satisfying that requirement without any issue. However, it was noted, and they recently discovered that within the manufactured home section, there was a either/or clause that talked about a 36-inch minimum. So essentially, if a mobile home needed to be replaced, there's substantial damage, they had the option of either or bringing it a foot above freeboard or a minimum of 36 inches. And because of that 36-inch minimum, they could do that requirement without actually meeting the freeboard requirement, which is a state mandate. So we are removing that 36-inch minimum across the board statewide, and that includes the city of Gainesville. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
All right. So as far as the accessory structure, that part comes from a FEMA sent down last year, some more specifics and requirements concerning agricultural structures and accessory structures, and that would be anything other than residential and commercial structures. So we're talking garages all the way to barns and silos and things like that. So mostly in what we deal with in Gainesville is going to be our small detached garages, backyard sheds, and things of that nature. So essentially what they did was they provided a more specific checklist. And here is what they are looking at is for the accessory structures, they are getting very specific as far as allowing them to be wet flood proofed. So what that means is instead of having a dry flood proofing, which is elevation, which is what we're dealing with the manufactured housing, they're allowing these structures to be built below the flood elevation as long as they meet specific requirements. And so those specific requirements is what we're adding in. So we've got a couple of items on here that can't be larger than 600 square feet. If they do end up being larger, that then falls under another category, which we would review on a case-by-case basis and deal with those. But most likely in Gainesville, we're not going to have very large barns and stuff of that nature. Then they must have flood openings. So the flood openings allows the flood water to come in to the structure and then leave the structure without any, hopefully not any substantial damage. And then they must be anchored to resist flotation, collapse, and et cetera. So, and then also the materials used below the flood elevation. So the things like the doors, drywall, wouldn't be drywall. It'd have to be things that were flood resistant so that when the flood water came into the structure, there would be minimal damage. And then the flood waters would recede. There'll be a little bit of cleanup and the structure will be fine. So, and along with that, some of the more finer stipulations I didn't put in here is also what is being stored in that structure. So they get very specific that if it's being used for anything beyond ingress or egress of the residential section, or if it's a parking garage or something of that nature, if it's anything where it has merchandise or it's being used to house anything of any value, then at that point it goes to a different category and would not fall under this. So they're getting really specific on that. So, and then the standard across the board for anything that's in the floodplain is the plumbing fixtures and electrical and et cetera are also elevated 1 foot, and that's pretty standard across the board. So as far as the minor wording, we replaced this subdivision, which was a common term used throughout the code, with something more specific relating to this section. Because subdivision could be confused with a subdivision such as a neighborhood. So at least in this section, that was a suggestion from the state DEM, something they're kind of encouraging municipalities to do to kind of eliminate this subdivision wording out of their code. And then the last little minor word update is to update the flood insurance study date to the latest. So we're actually due for a new flood insurance study come this November, and we already have one passed last November, so we needed to update it because the last one we had in an update was 2008, I think is what the current wording has in there. So anyway, it just needed to be updated, so that was just a minor thing. So with that, that is the only things that are in there, and if there's any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from the board for staff? Okay.
I guess I have one question. Mr. Renshaw, my assumption is part of what's attempted to be done here is to, well, at least the thing that interests me the most, is that in the event of flooding in agricultural areas, it seems like one of the things that would be wanted to be avoided is to have storage of material that would tend to leach into the floodwaters and pollute wherever they go after that. So I'm assuming if you're going to stay above the wet zone, you're not going to have fertilizers and things like that that are going to effectively go into the water.
Correct. So this actually excludes that. One of the items that they say that you cannot wet flood proof is storage facilities that store manure, fertilizer, et cetera. So those would completely fall into a different category, and they would have to be dry flood proof. In other words, they would have to be elevated or have some kind of wall or protection of sorts to keep water out of it completely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renshaw. Just one comment for all of the City Plan Board fans watching on TV. We don't have any one here from the public. So on the last item also, there wasn't an opportunity for public input. So we don't have anyone here for this either. So I'm going to bring it back to the board, and if we don't have any more questions, if someone would like to make a motion.
I move that we approve petition PB-21-00097 TCH.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. So I think that was unanimous. Okay. Well, thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Messi and Mr. Renshaw. Really appreciate it. So I think that's the end of our agenda. Do we have any member comments that we would like to, any topics we'd like to bring up?
I think Ms. McMullen is trying to get a workshop together for the second meeting or second weekend in August for the comprehensive plan. So appreciate everybody. And then I just wanted to double check. I think we've gotten everybody who's interested and able to go to the FAPA conference has responded. We're today's I think the end of early registration. So there's a mad rush in the department to get everything in. Everybody's very excited to get back to conferences. But that was it.
Mr. Hawkins?
On the note regarding the FAPA conference, the University of Florida is going to be hosting a reception, and all current students and alumni will be welcome to attend, and City of Gainesville Plan Board members who haven't attended the University of Florida planning program are welcome also.
Haven't attended the University of Florida what program?
Planning.
Oh.
Basically, I'm saying you should come to our reception also. I'd love to see it.
It is perhaps the greatest nerdy planner party. There's like usually a couple of beers and a lot of talk about setbacks and
Wow.
building frontage and all the things that we get to nerd out on.
Well, if I would have known that, I would have said that I wanted to go. But I already made other plans. There's still time. All right. Well, thank you very much. Then I'm going to close the meeting. All right.
Do it. Just